Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. I'm having problems with my computer.
Have you tried disabling the cookies?
Well, I once bit the legs off a gingerbread man. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Unstoppable from Renegade Game Studios. Unstoppable from Renegade Game Studios is a 1 to 2 player game in which you take on the role of some kind of a cyberpunk hero in the distant future who has to use all of his cunning to trade, upgrade, and defeat some horrible, evil galactic menace. Now, this game is unusual in a lot of ways. As I say, it's 1 to 2 player. I have only played it solo. I played it a few times solo now. So that's kind of where I'm going to be coming from in the review. But what also makes this game pretty interesting and unique is the fact that right off the bat, when you are getting the game ready, you are going to sleeve a number of cards. Now, you're not sleeving the cards to keep them nice and safe. You're sleeving them because the cards often have irregular shapes. And over the course of the game, you're going to add other cards to that sleeve on the other side. So the cards will function in two different ways. And there's several cards you have to do this with. Let's take a look. Now, first of all, you have 6 core decks, and these core decks are numbered 1 to 6. You're going to put each of the levels, 1 through 6, out, so you've got these stacks of different cards that you'll be recruiting during the game. You'll also put a couple of markers on top of that to indicate exactly what you can get cards from in any given round. You're also going to put beneath it various upgrades, various items that you can upgrade cards with. You're also going to add a threat deck next to your core cards, and those threat decks are sleeved face down. You're going to be adding cards to those cards later in the game. Now, you're going to have kind of the boss that you're battling. There's 3 different bosses in this game. They're going to have kind of their own deck. You are going to have kind of your starter cards. You're going to pick a character, and they're going to have kind of 3 unique cards that come with them, as well as some others. Now, you're going to have kind of the boss off to the side in his chart, and he's going to have some kind of threat cards. You're going to add some of those into your character deck. You got your character deck with a lot of your starter cards that's actually going to be face down on their threat side on your player board next to a character that you have selected. You're also going to start the game with some credits, which are currency in the game. And you're also going to have 3 action tokens to let you know how many actions you've taken in a specific round. Now, from your character deck, again, the back is going to have threats on them. You're going to put out 3 threats, so you've got 3 threats right at the beginning of the game. Now, the very first thing you're going to do on every turn is the upkeep phase. You're going to look at any cards, see if they've got an upkeep condition. You're going to make sure you've got your 3 action tokens on your player board, and you're going to see if you've got any allies that have been tapped during the course of the game. You're going to kind of put them back. You're going to refresh them for that turn. Next, you have the draft phase. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to look at the core decks, and as I mentioned, you've got these 2 markers on top of them, one with an arrow, one that it sits on. And wherever they are, those markers are, you're going to look at that deck. You're going to draw the top 3 cards from that deck. You're going to look through them, and you're going to pick one of them, putting the other 2 cards you don't choose on the bottom of that deck. Next, you're going to take the card you've chosen and grab a card from the threat deck, not looking at the threat side, but you're going to sleeve that card in there. So now you have got a card that you can use for that turn. Now, during the main phase, that's kind of where the action happens. Essentially, you're playing cards from your hand, and they have a cost in terms of the action tokens you've got. So for every one you have to spend whatever the cost is in action tokens to activate that card. Now, these cards may do some different things. They may give you credits. They may give you attack power that you can actually place damage on the threats or on the big baddie on the board. There may be other things that these cards allow you to do when played. You can also, at this time, purchase upgrades. You can actually spend the credits that you've acquired to grab one of the visible face-up upgrades and then put that into your card, and that usually will give that card some kind of special ability, make it a little more powerful. But critically, you're also making more powerful the threat that will come from that card later on. Now, in the main phase, you may also gain armor. Now, you start with 10 health in the game, but you may gain armor that goes up that can help you ward off some of these threats. Now, when you're going after these threat cards, you're trying to damage them up to their health value. If you go ahead and you can do their total health value, which is both their attack and their defense, if you put that together, that's their health. If you get all of their health, you go ahead, you take that card, it goes into your hand, and the reverse side of that card is now a card that you can use on your next turn. Now, during the threat phase, the remaining threat cards that are there will deal damage to you. Sometimes they just deal direct damage. There's a number, it tells you how much you get. Sometimes it makes you reference the big baddie sheet to tell you all of the damage that you're going to take. But for every point of damage you take, you have to lower your armor and then your health down that number of spaces. Finally, you've got the cleanup phase. So any tactics cards that you played get discarded into your discard pile. You lose all unspent action points. You reset your armor to 0. You refill the active threats up to 3 cards in front of you, and you advance the danger token on the big baddie. Now, occasionally you'll have to level up, and how this happens is if ever during the main phase or the cleanup phase, you're out of threat cards, you need to refill those cards, and there's nothing there to refill them, you go to leveling up. So here, you're going to advance the tokens that show where the core deck is. You're going to go ahead and see if there's any big baddie things that it's going to make you do, any conditions that it's going to put out there. And then you take your discard pile, you shuffle it, and you put it down, and that becomes the new deck from which the threats are going to come out to assail you during your turn. So over the course of the game, you're readying yourself in the upkeep phase, you're drafting cards, you are engaging in the main phase where you're attacking your enemies, you're buying upgrades, you're moving the core token, you are attempting to take down the baddie as much as you can, and then of course you've got to deal with any threats that still remain that give you damage, and then finally you have to clean everything up. But you go ahead, you do this several times, and the whole time you're attempting to take down the big baddie. If you can succeed in taking down the big baddie before the timer runs out, then you win! Unstoppable.
We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review.
Okay, so there's a lot more going on here. There's a lot of other little things to this game that I didn't really get into. But that's just kind of the basic overview of the game. As I say, this game plays 1 to 2 players. I've only played it solitaire. I played it 3 or 4 times now, and I haven't won once. This is a very interesting game, and I'm eager to play it again because there's a lot of meat here and a lot of choices here, and it is tough. And who would want to play a solitaire game that was easy, that you won every time? So I'm looking forward to beating this eventually. But the game is interesting on a lot of levels. It kind of takes the concept of a deck building game in many ways and it flips it on its head. Like, for instance, one of the big ways it does that is usually in a typical deck builder game, on your turn, you can buy cards that you put in a discard pile that eventually you will reshuffle, and those cards will come back and make your hand more powerful. Here, you've got the draft phase, and you're drafting cards right at the beginning of your turn, so you can grab a card that will be helpful to you immediately, and then it can eventually come back and cycle through again. It's interesting here, too, this concept of the sleeving and how you're putting, like, upgrades in there, and that is altering how tough those threats will be. But also, too, how one side of the card is your card that can give you a lot of cool things, and then the other side of the card is a threat and can be very dangerous. It's a very interesting take on the deck builder. Now, I was excited to play this game because I saw it was by John D. Clare, and John D. Clare has done some outstanding games. Space Base, Ecos, many great games that are kind of, most of the games I played by him have tended to be kind of this more kind of on the gateway family friendly level, and I've loved them. I haven't played any of his kind of other kind of card games that I'm familiar with. It I know AEG did them. But I was very interested in this game because I love deck builders, and I think, oh, it's a solitaire deck builder, and I kind of thought it would be a little lighter than it was, and I was kind of surprised to see there's a little more meat here than I was expecting. I was thoroughly charmed by this game. I'll tell you, there was a little bit of a learning curve. There was a little bit of me trying to figure out the nuances and some of the basic ideas. The first time I played it, I screwed up because I thought the cost to play the cards, which are your actions, I thought that was your credits. So I was like out of credits, like within a few turns. I was like, what? I don't get it. But once I figured those things out, once I grokked this game, I was like, oh my gosh, this is something really cool. Maybe at some point I'd like to try it two-player, but I really think it lends itself well to just being a solitaire game. It's fun. There is some setup to it and some takedown to it, which is not horrible, but it's there. But on the whole, this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and this was one of the games too. As soon as I stopped, I'm like, well, I got to play it again. Oh, I got to play it again. It really kind of drags you into it with some fun mechanics, some great artwork, and the science fiction theme here is just a lot of fun. On some levels, it almost kind of reminded me of Android Netrunner, which is one of the great card games of all time. But it doesn't play like it, but it just kind of visually and the theme and stuff. I really enjoyed Unstoppable, and I think there's a lot of room here potentially for expansions and other interesting uh, things that could be brought to this game that I'm sure they'll probably do. On the Cody scale, I'm going to give Unstoppable an 8. I think it's a great game. It's a great science fiction solitaire card game. Just something my collection needs. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we would ask you to please leave a comment here on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on Facebook, on Twitter. Please like and follow us on social media. We would ask you to please like this video and subscribe to it on YouTube if you haven't already. We'd also ask you to please leave a thumb for us on Board Game Geek as well. Now, if you really do like what you see here on this channel, I would humbly ask you to check out my other YouTube channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, military history, books on history. I even post some of my lectures on that channel, so please subscribe to that channel as well. It would mean the world to me. And also, too, if you really do like what we do here on this channel, I would humbly ask you to click on the Super Thanks button and leave a tip. Why did the chicken go to the gym? To work on his pecs.